Hi, Ghosty fam. Welcome to the Activity Continues podcast. I'm Megan, and my co-hosts Amy and AP are all soul sisters who usually recap episodes of the TV show The Dead Files. But since they're on break, we are sharing some new and fun things with you. Some weeks we interview interesting people, and other weeks it's listener stories. This week, it's listener stories.
Yes, thanks for joining us again. This is Amy. And this week we have stories from Michael, who is Abductee Mary's friend, Serena, our new patron, which we'll get to in a sec. Mm-hmm. Julie is from the Dead Files offshoot chat on Facebook. Mm-hmm. 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 And then a special visit from our friend Melissa, who will tell us some ghosty fun stories. Mm-hmm. So please say hello also to Amy P., a.k.a. AP, our newest member. She's keeping us in check with facts and stuff like that. Hey, Amy.
Howdy, howdy.
Hi, Amy.
Hey. Also want to say welcome to Serena, our new patron. Mm-hmm. I know that she joined us recently, and that's pretty exciting. We're always excited to see a new patron member.
That's right.
So come over and join us. I mean, what's it going to hurt? It doesn't cost you anything.
That's right.
Nope.
That's right. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's always in there, but just take a look for it. It's just patreon.com/the activity continues, all one word. Mm-hmm. No dashes.
Perfect.
So, yeah. Cool.
And then as for content warning, again, because we're talking with people with various different stories, we don't know what's going to happen. So please check the show notes as to what might be a trigger warning that's coming up.
Yeah. I don't really think there's going to be anything as far as the stories that I've seen and heard, but our conversation might veer off, as it does.
There's always swearing.
Yeah.
So
there's, I noticed that when we met with Leah, the shaman, we really didn't swear very much at all.
She was just so calming. Like I didn't want to she was just like, oh,
well, fuck.
And, I didn't want to come at her.
Right. Right.
She was just very earthy is that's just.
And then Kirsten, I love, she started off with, and all that shit. Oh, shit. Can I swear?
And we're like, oh, absolutely. She's like, beautiful. Good.
Yeah.
Fluent in the lingo.
Yes.
Fluent in swears.
Yes. She was a blast, too.
I can't
she
wait
was so much fun
to have her back so I can chat with her because, she seems so fun.
She was really fun. She's really cool. And she's got so many stories and does so many variety of things that,
so many variety. I love that.
So many varieties.
So many variety.
Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds like
so
me.
many.
The only housekeeping thing I have is that Patreon now is connected to Spotify. So if you are a patron, you'd have to be a paid patron. You can go to Spotify and see all of our episodes that we put out. And I do try to get an episode out on Monday. So we are right now, we're doing this on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. The episode's coming out at midnight for patrons. So I'm going to try and keep that schedule. We'll see.
Okay.
So if you head out to Spotify in the morning or in the middle of the night, should you wake up in the middle of the night?
Should you work a noon to 8 a.m. shift?
That's right. Or be in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Or somewhere else. We have some UK patrons too.
That we do.
Yeah, we do.
All right. So, Megan, do you want to read that story?
I sure do.
Okay.
So Julie, who is a listener from the Dead Files chat group, she wrote in about the Mansfield Reformatory. So, a little bit background on this. And she did post photos too, which Amy will put on the blog. Mm-hmm. So when this is out, you can go check it out. But the background of the Mansfield Reformatory.
Yeah, I looked it up because I wasn't sure what it was. So I looked it up and popped this stuff in.
Perfect. I love it. The Ohio State Reformatory, also known as the Mansfield Reformatory, is a historic prison located in Mansfield, Ohio in the United States. It was built between 1886 and 1910 and it remained in operation until December 1990, when a United States federal court ruling ordered the facility to be closed as a result of a prisoner's class action suit citing overcrowding and inhumane conditions, which is a good thing to be closed for.
I'm pretty sure our favorite black glasses wearing
baggy pants
friend, baggy pants, has been hit to this location.
I think so too.
It was, yeah. In 2009, the facility was featured on Ghost Adventures Season 3, Episode 4. So,
and then I wrote in my notes, that mess has been on that long.
Yeah, it has. That's 14 years. Oh my God.
Truthfully, it used to have a lot better like history of the areas that they were covering. I haven't watched it in a couple of years because it kind of went down on that and focused on the menacing demon tones.
Oh,
yeah, they like their demons, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, the demons don't like that.
I think at least one of them does because he's from there, but
yeah. It also has been in lots of TV shows and films, including a little movie called The Shawshank Redemption. Ever heard of it?
I don't know what that one is.
You should look it up. It's real good.
It's real good.
The prison was used for a large panning scene and the warden's office. And an officer's quarters were used to shoot a sequence set in a civilian apartment. So it's really famous. And so if you're interested, you can check out more on Wikipedia or
I do love that movie.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I need to watch it again.
And it holds up.
It does.
I haven't seen it in years. I need to watch it again.
I mean, I don't think I've watched the full thing through in years, but I keep catching parts of it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And every time I get to Brooks, I cry. Every goddamn time.
It's one of those that as you're flipping through and you're like, oh, I love this movie.
You're like, I'm just going to watch it.
I'm just going to watch it. I don't care that there's 24 minutes left.
Yeah, I know. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it. Yep. It's not an action movie or fast-paced, but it is just so good. Morgan Freeman's in it.
Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins is in
Tim
it.
Robbins. Oh, he's fantastic.
Andy Dufresne. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not a podcast about the Shawshank Redemption.
I know, we could do that.
Maybe it should be.
Yeah,
I mean, we could.
So here Julie writes, quote, "Good afternoon, all. Little story about Mansfield Reformatory. A few friends and I visited in October of 2021. We were able to tour the entry, warden's house, a couple of cell blocks, the chapel, and the attic, which I would never, ever tour cell blocks in a closed prison. Like, that's terrifies me. You, of course, Amy would. Of course. You probably have.
I will go to someday to Alcatraz and I will stand in the Bermans.
Nope. Never in a million years. You could not.
I'm not going to, like, piss him off.
No, but I know you wouldn't. You're not a ZB, but still not.
I might talk about birds.
Yeah.
Al Capone was out there.
Yeah, he was.
Because he didn't have, he went there because he didn't have the intricate system like he had when he was at the one in Kansas. I can't think of the one in Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, Leavenworth. He was at Fort Leavenworth.
Because he knew everybody there and he was like living it up.
He knew how to get his way.
That's why he was sent to, or one of the reasons why he was sent to Alcatraz is because they wanted to make sure that he was a prisoner and not just a
hotel
god
guest.
to some.
A guest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. The warden's house had several floors, some used as classrooms and dormitories below the warden's quarters. I walked into one of the rooms and I felt so sad and hopeless. No idea what might have occurred. Probably something not great is what I'm going to assume. The building was very run down. Some areas had chunks of the walls and ceiling lying around. Oh my God. We continued to the warden's home. Some furniture still sat in the rooms. Wow. That's crazy. I instantly sensed a very sad lady. She was pretty, light brown hair, dark green velvet hat. Her sons were running around in the hallway laughing. She looked at them so sadly. It was hard to be there. Jeez, that's so sad. We moved to the area used to portray Brooks' bedroom. It was so cool. And Brooks was a character from the Shawshank Redemption film. His storyline was so sad. So sad. Oh my God. I hated it. But I loved it. I mean, I loved it, but it was jarring. What was the name of his bird? It was like a really normal name. Michael. Yeah, Amy will look it up. The stairs to the right were very creepy. It took a lot to go up there. There were a couple weird little doorways up in the ceiling above them. It went into the chapel. I felt nothing there but a strange, creepy little cell was built into it. Jake! I knew it was
Jake
a normal.
the Crow.
Yeah, I knew it was a normal name. We entered the attic area, and that's where I heard, quote, women shouldn't be here. Woof!
Ew.
That's not great.
Fuck off, man.
Yep. Not fucking men. Don't know who said it. Probably somebody not nice. I saw these strange beings at the back of the room. Oh my God. It felt like they were brought there by a couple inmates who came from some other prison. Oh my God. So I wonder, were they brought there by the people, like they were attached to them?
That's what it sounds like.
Or did they summon them? They were brought there by a couple of inmates who came from some other prison. So did they summon them? Could be either one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, not great. I only went halfway into that room and stopped. You're braver than me. I wouldn't have even gone in. I would have been like, I'm gonna stay out here. I got pictures of some of the drawings on the walls from prisoners to stay there with no heat or air conditioning. Oh my God. It had to be misery, but the prison didn't have space for everyone transferred there. We went into a couple of cells. It was very high up. I was uncomfortable, so I didn't stay long. Yeah. On our way out, we descended a very beautiful staircase, and my palms started burning. I reacted to it, and my friends asked if I was okay. My hand was very red, confusing. Interesting.
I mean, throwing things out there, if asbestos was out and it came down off of the ceilings or any fiberglass that cuts into the hand, not discrediting, but just throwing out some options of what the heck, and it's only on my palm.
That's a good point. And
It could
again,
have
we're
been
not
something on the stairs that irritated her. hand.
Yep. So not discrediting anything that she had to say, but just offering some potentials of maybe a train of thought we didn't go down before.
Oh, okay. Hold that thought. I should have kept reading. An hour later during the tour, the guide shared information about a fire that tragically killed quite a few people. It took about a week to heal. My skin peeled for about 2 weeks. So strange.
Okay, so it was a burn, not just. Yep.
See, I didn't read that either, so I was fully on board with you. I'm like, yeah, that's a really good idea.
Well, it still could have been like a chemical burn.
Yes.
That she actually experienced, but yeah.
I'm gonna say no.
I mean, just laying the platform that there's stuff out there, but yeah,
I feel like alone,
a little freaky.
Alone, just the hand. Yes, I would be on board with Amy, but like the fact that there was a fire, it took a week to heal. Her skin peeled.
Did she mention touching something that caused?
Yes. So they descended a very beautiful staircase, and my palms started burning.
I assume she had her hand on the...
Okay, so and did anybody... That would be the next phase in my science brain, logic brain of going, did anybody else get this kind of feeling? Was this, so then you can kind of rule out if nobody else is getting it and they all touch the railing too.
Then
what is that? Or if other people touch the railing and they also had that feeling, what does that constitute to? Again, not discrediting what she felt or what she was going through.
Julie, if you want to let us know, we would love to know.
Yeah.
I have to separate my logic brain from my emotional brain a lot, just to process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So yes, there was an old safe in the hallway near the stairwell. It was so cool, walk-in sized. I could feel a lot of energy around it. And that's the end of her story. So that was a good one. That was, I tell you what, people who go in prisons like that, I would never, because I'm so afraid. That's why I'm so hesitant to do like ghost walks, because like, I don't want something attaching itself to me.
Yeah.
Because that's happened before, and it took me 10 years to get rid of him. And I don't want to do it again.
No, I don't blame you.
Even though he was very nice, he wasn't mean at all. He
Yeah.
was very nice. I actually think he protected me for some very bad situations.
Yeah.
But it just freaks me out.
Yeah.
See, and I don't get any, I haven't had any of those attachments, but I usually, if I do a tour or something, I'm like, you can talk to me, but only in a positive manner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that means anything or does anything, but, I've had the like whisper in my ear or the something going past me. We were at the Greyfriars Kirkyard last year, which is the amount of people that are buried there is substantially higher than they claim, just due to the time frame of how long that cemetery has, or that kirkyard has been around, and how big it is. It's not very big.
Mm-hmm.
No.
That's crazy.
But there's actually there's a pit that is literally called the Plague Pit.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a pit of despair, basically. It was the plague pit. It was anybody who died from the plague was thrown into this pit.
That was from Princess Bride. In case you missed the reference, but that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's So I like going on those kinds of things because I also love the history that's attached to those. And usually I'm going in with, for the most part, I'm getting a history that others are not going to experience because you're not seeing that kind of aspect.
Yeah.
So I guess I do go in with a little bit of the skeptic mindset at times. But like I just have said, I've done the Anoka County one before, but I'd love to go and do it again. It's just got some cool stuff. I mean, it's local and it's in an area. Anoka is considered the Halloween capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just a really cool place, especially if you get a really nice, crisp fall evening to go and do it.
I'm in. Let's do it.
I mean, I'm in, but
But I'm going to wait in the car.
I'm just saying.
You can wait in a restaurant. They're like half a block away from where. The restaurants are only like a half a block from where the historical
I'm just
society is in
gonna
Anoka.
douse myself in salt. Just salt everywhere.
Just salt crusted
Yeah,
Megan
salt,
walking around.
Just my hair is gonna be full of salt. People are gonna think it's dandruff. Are you?
And then there's
okay?
going to be
No,
Amy and Amy standing over there
Yeah.
being like, hey, who wants to talk to us?
Yeah. I don't know her. She came with us. I don't know her.
Oh, funny.
I had a friend who used to live in Anoka area and would go, she still does, but she doesn't live in Anoka anymore, but go all out on their Halloween decorations. And I mean, like, this woman, their whole front yard. So the year that I went past, they had a canoe with skeletons out. They had skeletal fish. They had a
Oh my God, I
dock
love
where
it.
somebody, like, skeletons were fishing and had caught the skeletal fish. I've seen it where they've had they had a bar, so they had the ghosty bar set up. So they had a bartender and they had all the
I love it.
bar front
Yep.
and all the cocktails, and they had all these skeletons people coming into the bar, and it was their whole entire
Wow.
yard.
That's dedication.
That's cool.
I'm jealous because I do not have the ability to focus that long to set something like that
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
No. I could come up with some ideas, but I would never be able to put it into practice.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I definitely have ideas. And then it's like, oh, Halloween's tomorrow.
Yeah, it always comes quicker than you expect. Yep. All right. So our next story is the one from Michael, who
Yay.
is
Ooh.
Mary's abductee. Mary? Abductee. It's a word.
I'm gonna say
if I
abductee.
say it too many times, it
sounds wrong. Or
Anyway.
like not a real word.
Yeah. So anyway, Mary, she told her friend Michael about have being on our show and how she had fun and stuff. And so he sent me his story and I read it in email. And then I said, this is great. I can use this, or you can record it and send me the recording. So he did that.
Yay!
Hi, Amy and team. Okay, so here's my story. I guess it must have been 1995 on a Sunday morning. I drove down to Hidden Falls to sit by the river. Must have been about 5:30 a.m. At that time, I'd recently moved to Minnesota from Tennessee, and I discovered Hidden Falls as a quiet place to sit and reflect. I just left my hometown of Nashville to start my life over here in St. Paul. Well, on this particular morning, I walked down to the north entrance to my favorite spot by the water. I was sitting there a little while when I remember seeing a head pop out of the water and then some splashing around. Soon, a figure stood up to reveal what looked like a young woman in a prom dress. She kept splashing around playfully in the water before she got out and slowly started walking toward me, creature of the lagoon style.
Yeah.
It looked like she was wearing a taffeta prom dress. She walks up, dripping in the sand right in front of me, and looks at me from behind a set of horn-rimmed glasses. "It's a little cold for a swim, don't you think?" I remember asking her. "It's not so much a swim as a rebirth," I remember her saying. Okay, now it was getting weird.
Oh, yeah,
I sat there for a little bit trying to figure out what to say or do, so I just offered her one of my muffins, which she took. I don't remember the small talk, but I do remember her saying that she was from Tennessee, as was I, and that she had gone to Vanderbilt University, as had I.
That's fancy.
The funny thing is that she offered up this information first, making it a pretty unnerving coincidence. Well, soon she thanked me and she left, walking up the sand toward the road. I sat there for a while trying to process things before I decided I had to find her and keep talking. By this time, the sun had come up more and there were a couple of people walking around. So I asked a couple if they had seen a young woman walking around in what looked to be a wet prom dress. No one had. So I went home, got on with my day, my week, my life. To this day, I know this was most likely a woman going through some big life stuff. But I also feel like it might have been a fairy shaking off her wings, Wim Wenders style, to walk with us just for a little bit. That's it. That's my story. It happened in 1995, and I still remember it. Okay, thanks for the interest.
Oh my God, I love that idea that it was a fairy.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
That is so magical.
But aren't the typical fairies usually fairly dangerous?
Oh, are they?
If you look in Scottish and Irish lore, I believe that they're fairly yeah, not always representing what they are.
Okay.
Kind of like the Selkies who
Yeah.
shed their seal skins to be human for that amount of time while they're on land. And I could be wrong, but I feel like I love the stories of the Irish and Scottish fae folk and that sort of stuff. But I do feel that there's usually an underlying want of something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, so bless his heart for being like, oh, who are you and what's going on? And you're from Tennessee? I'm from Tennessee too.
Have a muffin.
Have a muffin.
Yes, the muffin.
So sweet.
Yeah. Very Southern hospitality.
I had to look up where Hidden Falls is because, I mean, there's probably several places. So it is just northeast of the airport, the MSP airport, not far from the historic Fort Snelling.
Okay.
So does that make it Bloomington?
Highland Park.
Oh. Highland Park.
So it's on like the west edge of Highland Park, right before the Mississippi River there.
Okay.
So, but then also being in the area of Fort Snelling, I mean, there's a lot of history that went down in Fort Snelling, not even to consider that there's Snelling, State Park. There's, both my grandparents on my dad's side are buried at Fort Snelling National Cemetery. So there's a lot of history in that area, as well as there's a lot of potential bodies that are at unrest or potential grave markers that do not have a body associated.
See, my initial thought was a spirit that passed away in a car accident, on the way to prom.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Or from prom.
Yep.
Like that movie, the Disney Channel movie, something about Susie. She was a...
Susie Q.
Thank you. Yes. That was a cute movie. Oh my God, I loved it.
Aw.
But she was killed in 1950 when her and her boyfriend were on their way to prom.
And she was wearing a pink prom
She
dress,
was
wasn't
wearing
she?
a pink prom dress, yeah.
Aw.
And so she came back, and this kid had to help her, like,
Yep.
figure. I don't remember what he had. He helped her figure something out. Think maybe what happened to her boyfriend or what caused the car crash, and then she was able to move on.
Oh, okay.
Susie Q was the pink Power Ranger.
Was she?
Oh.
Oh,
Yep.
It was a really cute movie. But
Kimberly
that's what made me think of,
something or
that's what
another.
it made me think of as a person who died
Yep.
on their way to prom or
Yeah.
from prom or.
And I feel like that's a, when you look at some of those, like, Are You Afraid of the Dark or stories, like those kinds of stories, there's there's a girl who died in the 1950s who
It's
comes
like a
back to
very
haunt or
common
somebody who
trope.
needs
Yep.
a ride and they get dropped off outside of a cemetery,
Yep.
those urban legends. Again, not discounting anything
Right.
Michael had
No,
to
no,
say,
no, no.
but just associating it with
Common.
some of those.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
curious to know more about why he thought fairy
Mm-hmm.
and went into kind of the fae side of things rather than ghost side of things. Like, was there a feeling
maybe
or
it was an energy or something.
Yeah.
yeah?
I liked it.
I mean, all of those stories, myths, legends, anything are all used to explain something we don't understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the brownies in Scottish folklore are the house help, quote unquote, which is probably where like the house elves from Harry Potter associate from. However, they didn't, in the folklore, they don't want your assistance and they don't want your charity and then like if you are too nice to them, then they're like, I have to do something bad to you now.
Oh.
Yep.
Yikes.
So there's like even the old man of store, like the rock face that you can go and climb up to or hike up to. There's a story that associates with a potential brownie or a fae folk that is associated with one of the like 3 stories that I read about the old man of store.
And we're not talking about like eating brownies either.
Nope, we're talking
No, but
about
now I
brownies
want
as in
one.
the fairy.
I know. Yeah.
Yep.
I never don't want a brownie.
Right.
So.
I know.
I mean-
The answer's never going to be no if that's asked.
Right.
The ones with chocolate chips in it are the best.
As long as the top has that crinkle sort
Yes.
of stuff.
And give me a corner piece all day long.
All right. Well, thank you,
Yes.
Michael, for
Thank you,
sending
Michael.
this awesome
Thank
story.
you, Michael.
Thank
Yes.
you, Mary, for telling Michael about
Yes.
us. And the last one we have, this is, I hid it from you because I wanted to see your
I was going to say, I couldn't see it.
There's another?
This
I
one
love-
is from our new patron, Serena.
Okay.
So, she sent me this in Instagram, in a chat
Okay.
or whatever. Oh my God, you guys. It actually says OMG, but OMG, you guys. I have a super short and weird story for you. Yesterday after work, my boyfriend Rob and I went to visit his grandfather's grave, as it would have been his birthday. And he visits the gravesite on 8/8 each year. We are driving around.
Lionsgate.
What?
Lionsgate portal.
Yep. Yep. I did my ritual.
Same.
And, okay, so he visits the gravesite on 8/8 each year. We are driving around the cemetery looking for the right section in dead silence, pun intended,
Serena.
Nah, but I,
when all of a sudden your podcast starts playing on my phone that is sitting in the cup holder.
Shut up.
It's like it picked up where I left off when I left work 2 hours prior.
Oh my God.
It was the June 3rd, 2022 Alcatraz, Amy's, and Alliteration. Freaked me the fuck out when it happened.
yeah.
And I
shit.
could not get it to stop playing. I closed all my apps and it was still playing.
Oh my God.
I've had to do that before and force stop in the app settings.
And she says, I look over at my boyfriend and he says, what? You think this is happening because you're in a cemetery, don't you?
Yes.
I said, damn right I do.
Yes,
Kick
Rob.
ass.
Are you sure his name's not Skeptic Greg?
Yeah, right.
Or
We have a
Zach
skeptic Rob,
Bagels.
it looks like. So she said I had to restart my phone to get it to stop. It was
Oh
awesome.
my God.
Oh my God, Serena, I love it.
I love it so much.
And then she finished it with a smiling emoji, a laughing sideways emoji, a ghost, and a heart.
Aw.
So thank you to Serena
Thank
for
you,
sending us
Serena.
that. That was so much fun.
I'm glad we were part of that journey for you.
I loved it.
Important part, did you guys find the right section and the right grave?
Yeah.
Yes.
I assume, hopefully.
Hopefully. And then she was like, Grandpa, you're never going to relive this story. Even though I know it was his. It was Rob's grandpa. I don't know his name. But
No, we don't know his name.
the craziest thing happened. There's this awesome podcast. And he's
Funny.
like, what's a podcast?
Yes, we appreciate
Yes.
Serena for sending us that story.
Thank
and
you.
For becoming a patron.
Absolutely.
She's awesome.
She's the best. Yeah.
As all of
our
are.
everybody.
I mean, only cool kids follow us, right?
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
I mean, I was one.
Yeah,
That's right.
You still are one. You were promoted.
Yeah. Hi, friends. Do us and yourselves a favor and check out our affiliate, 3 Spirit Drinks. They create plant-based, non-alcoholic elixirs that are cruelty-free and vegan, and they are designed to give you some of the benefits of alcohol without the hangover and other side effects. If you're looking to cut down on alcohol but still want the buzz, check them out. The link is us.3spiritdrinks.com and use the promo code TheActivityContinues for 15% off your entire order.
Hi, Melissa.
Hey, Melissa. Hello.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
So today we have with us Melissa, who you guys may know is the composer and musician behind our lovely intro
I got some
song.
amazing song that I dance to all the time. Sing along at work.
It is. It's so good. It's so perfect. And I love like when I'm editing and then I'm done and then I slip that song in the beginning, at the end, at the end.
Mhm.
And then when I listen to the whole thing to make sure it sounds okay, as soon as that starts, I'm like,
I know.
You need to
just
make
like-
an official dance.
yeah.
You never know. Shove it on TikTok.
Great.
Yeah.
Now you're
Oh,
tempting me. And now we're going to.
Megan, I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And all those TikTok moves, you know.
Yeah.
You got this.
Yeah. You can
I'm
do it.
TikTok savvy.
I believe in you. Let me know. We'll put it up.
All right.
So Melissa's here to tell us some one or two or however many ghost stories that she's got a lot of experience. You don't really call yourself a medium or anything, right? But I mean,
No. Well, mostly because I have no control over it.
oh,
But there have been many, many instances in my life that I
Yeah.
can't explain. Some have been in a roundabout way confirmed.
Mm.
So yeah,
yeah.
I'm
it's,
excited.
it's odd.
All right. Yeah. So with that, take it away.
Oh my goodness. Right. Well, I would love to start with the one that you are connected to, Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It's a good one. It's a good one. So my husband is a realtor and I work with him. And we were selling Amy's former house, a big Victorian in uptown Minneapolis. Beautiful, beautiful 3-story, just amazing house. And it had a glorious backyard with a carriage house. I've talked with my hands and nobody can see it because this is a podcast.
Well,
but
it'll be on a video too.
Oh, we have the
Okay,
video.
good. See it.
they can all see my Frenchness. With a carriage house at the back.
And the carriage house had a recording studio in it. But I am always, as always, day late, dollar short. Didn't start doing podcasting until we moved to the place that doesn't have a recording studio.
That's okay. You'd have had ghostly interruptions at the end.
That's true.
True.
Well, I do now too.
But you do know.
That's okay.
They love you. So we were doing an open house, a beautiful weekend morning or lunchtime, and it was just my husband and I, and people had come in and out of the house. And there was a break between guests, and we were sitting in the living room. And how this works for me is a scene will kind of just sort of appear in my mind. It's hard to explain.
Mhm.
It almost plays like a movie. And so I'll hear things and I'll see things, not with my eyes or ears, but in my mind. But it's a very, very different feeling from imagining or daydreaming.
Okay.
So I know when it's happening that it's something else. I can tell. And I don't know how to describe how I can tell, but I can tell. So in this case, this was a very long living room. And at the very end of it, facing us, was a fireplace. And there was a doorway to the left that would go into the dining room. And I saw this man dressed in what I thought was maybe 1920s attire, a suit. And he was kind of had his back slightly to me, and he was looking at the fireplace. And I could hear like a honky-tonk piano type music and women's laughter and glassware. So it felt like almost like a party. But here's the other interesting thing. When these things happen, I also know things. So for example, this is also hard to explain, but for example, I knew that it wasn't a party, that it was a business of some sort.
Okay.
And there was nothing in the context of what I was seeing and hearing that would tell me that. I just knew it. So I started thinking, oh, maybe it's like a speakeasy or something like that. And then people arrived and the vision kind of faded and, you kind of let it go. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot something before that happened. Before the people showed up, I started, and I had never really done this before, but now I do it every time I have an experience, and sometimes it works. But in my mind, I asked, what's your name? And I got Jim Cam. And I went in my head again, Jim Cam. And I heard Cam. Like, you're getting it wrong. When somebody repeats and you're just, and you're going, yeah, Cam. And they're like,
That's
no.
what I said.
Right.
And this went on a little bit. And then the people came in and the whole scene kind of faded away and I let it go. So later on, as I think this was at the end actually, and we were turning off the lights, my husband went upstairs. I did the basement. No problem. I almost have never had anything happen in a creepy basement.
Which is so weird.
It always happens like daytime, sunny, beautiful, Anyway, so when I got to the dining room where this man had been standing to turn off the lights, I was very compelled to kind of get down on my knees and start, there was like a wood paneling on the bottom third of the wall. And I was compelled to place my hands on it, push and see, like I thought I was going to find a secret compartment or something like that. Like it was just this feeling. And as I was crouched down doing that, I felt him, the man from earlier, come up behind me and he whispered, "Where are the curse?" And he said it in a way, it wasn't threatening.
Yeah.
It was almost mischievous. And it was almost like, we know what we're doing. We're good at what we do. And you're never going to find it.
You're not going to find what's there.
Yeah, that was the feeling I got
all day, but
you're not going to
find it.
And it made me smile. And I never felt threatened or anything like that. It was more like, oh, this is playful. He's playing, So that was that. We shut off the lights, locked the doors, left. And as we're driving home, I got on my phone and I'm like, Minneapolis, 1920s, bootlegger, speakeasy, mobster, gangster, that type of search. My Google search history is so questionable.
Hollander is not outside the realm of possibilities since he was arrested in Stillwater.
Exactly. And the first name that popped up was Kid Can with 2 N's. And I'm like, wow, Cann and Cam
sound the
kind
same.
of look the same. And Kid Can and Jim Cam over the course of 100 years and happiness. Maybe, And I just thought that was so interesting. And as I read more about him, he was kind of the top dog in town, in that era, that same era of the clothing that I felt. And, interestingly enough, he actually lived, I think, to a pretty good age for his lifestyle.
80 something, yeah. 81 or something.
Yeah. And his funeral was held at the Jewish temple, which was, well, Amy, you'll like a block?
A block away from our house, yeah.
Yeah. So, and who knows, Amy's house had been a boarding house in the past.
Yep.
So who knows if it was a speakeasy at some point.
I mean, it was pretty common in that time frame to be boarding houses. My great grandparents that came over from Poland, she ran a boarding house. And so my my grandpa, my dad has told me he never knew who was going to sleep in his room that night.
No.
Like, you don't, like,
Yeah.
it's so weird nowadays, but at that point in time, it was just a source of income. It was just whatever. But she also had a still, and she was near the Nicollet Island caves. And yeah, my dad said, yeah, she definitely had a still, and she never spoke English, or much English, but we never got that recipe.
The one that you wanted.
I got the pierogi recipe at least.
Ooh.
That's been a verbal pass down.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so when Melissa told me that story, and we had not had any conversations about ghosts at all, she just one time said to me, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And I was like, "Yeah, what did you see?" And she told me that story, and I was like, "Oh my God." So I looked up Kid Can. It was very interesting. His life was fascinating.
Yeah.
And I know that we have very briefly before talked about my podcast, Volstead Land, but that is about Kid Can, and that came about because of Melissa's experience. So
He was
You did
kind of
a
a jerk, wasn't
Phenomenal
he?
job.
oh, thank you. He was the top mob, of the
Mhm.
Jewish mob. So he was top dog. So yeah, he had people killed.
Yeah.
But he was very charming, and
Oh,
They always are.
people, yeah, everybody
I mean,
liked
you don't
him.
get to be the top of the mafia by being a really nice guy.
Mm-mm.
And giving
But was
people-
he?
Wait, I
was
thought you
he
did.
Also, did he also like help? I mean, I feel like, and I need to re-listen to Volstead Land, but didn't he also help some of the community?
Yes. Oh, he was
There was
huge
some of
with
that.
giving money to the community.
Right.
That's what mobsters do.
Yeah, that's how they do it, so that
Yeah.
they don't get hauled off
Right.
to jail.
Because then they're seen as quote unquote pillars of the community.
Mhm.
And so you're not viewed as like, well, those are some indiscretions we can
Exactly.
go.
We'll overlook
Mhm.
it because
we'll
he
overlook
helped
because
us.
because they do so much for the church or the temple or for the community or for the children or whatever
Yep,
else.
they did a lot. He did a lot of stuff for the schools.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
so
I
they
talked to
overlook a
somebody-
lot.
Yeah, in the research that I had done, I spoke to somebody who said that when he was young, that his school got money from Isidore Blumenfield was his name. Kid Ken was just his mob name or whatever. But that they got a lot of money for like for the sporting teams and stuff.
Mhm.
You know, he would give them he'd buy all their uniforms and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
But also during that time, they were like the mobsters and like Bonnie and Clyde, they were so romanticized
Right.
about because they were quote unquote sticking it to the man. They were going against the government. And so they represented the working person.
Mhm.
And there was that like, we have to support them so that they support us and they don't take from us, but they take, you know, it's like the Robin Hood scheme, like
Yeah.
take from the rich, take from the government and give back to those who need it.
Mhm.
But, you know, it goes into that Bonnie and Clyde era. There is, I mean, you listen to the stories or watch the movies about Bonnie and Clyde, and when they were shot and killed and they were riddled with bullets inside of their car,
Mhm.
they were on parade basically for at least a couple of days before anybody did anything with that scene,
Yeah.
Mm.
because it was, oh my gosh, these people are us,
Mhm.
you know, and you know, Kid Can very much like could have been, well, he's us,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
one of us, and
Well,
he
was
made
an
it this far.
immigrant. He was an
Mhm.
immigrant, came over when he was 1 year old. And because back then also the Jews were not allowed to have jobs. And so
Correct.
they had to have money. So they would be street
Mhm.
vendors or something like
Mhm.
that. And so his father was a street vendor, but he sold newspapers on the street corners. And then
Mhm.
it just sort of went, he just
Yeah.
started going
No.
up from that. But I was going to say something else about how he was in the community. Oh, he was also really big with unions and the
Mhm.
workers. He was
Mhm.
very much supportive of the workers. And so, like you say, like kind of anti the man kind of
Yep.
stuff. So he was big union guy.
Was he kind of big into his role at that point in time when FDR was in charge then as well? When he came into he came into presidency in the 1930?
Yeah.
Around that time, right after Black Friday. And
he
put
would
all
have been
those,
then.
yeah, all those programs and everything during the Great Depression that I know my grandfather was a part of the Civilian Conservation Corps. So he planted a lot of trees in the Twin Cities area.
Okay.
That can still be seen around today.
Wow. Cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was definitely a bootlegger. He was one of the big ones. He had either he or his people in his family owned almost all of the liquor stores and bars. And so you could only, especially if you were convicted of bootlegging, which he was, then when you got out, because he got away with everything. He would get caught and then he'd be free. But you were not allowed to own a liquor store. So he never owned a liquor store, but his
family
wife did. His mom did. His sister's husband did. And so all these people owned the liquor stores and the bars.
So people have known how to skirt around the legalities of things for a long time.
Yep.
But his life is fascinating.
It is really fascinating.
I want to give props to your podcast, Amy, because I know you did so much research and it's so well done. It's really entertaining, and he's a fascinating character. He
really is. So informative too. I mean, it really.
Yeah, is. Even just on the history of the Twin Cities.
There was so much stuff I'd never known, and it is very interesting. I never used to be into history. I always thought it was boring, but
I love history.
His story is.
He's not boring.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. There's a bunch of murders. There's bank robberies. There's fascinating.
Scandal.
Well, I mean, what was the Northfield? That was the James gang. James Younger gang. Came up through here and got run out of town. I mean, like they have a whole celebration about the James Younger gang that came through, and they had the days about it because they ran them out of town. Did they kill one of them?
I don't remember.
I can't remember if they did or not, but they ran them out.
So.
Yeah. But at that time, it was like if they got somebody, their body was on parade because it was like, he's famous and look at what we did.
There's a plaque. I was down there last autumn, I think it was, and saw the bank.
Yeah.
And there's like a plaque kind of bragging about all that.
There's a little museum in town. I was there a couple years ago, so I'm a little rusty on it, but it's so fascinating how like those names and things that come about that you've heard about in past or in readings or anything like that come through.
And it feels almost like fiction until you see those. You're like, oh, wow, these were real people. You know, even Al Capone. Al Capone is larger than life at this point. And yet he was a real person and those things were real. It's just so hard to wrap your brain around sometimes.
Yep. Al Capone is connected to Kid Can as well.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the women I used as a source, her father worked for Al Capone, like did a job for him.
There's so much
like not a murder job.
I was going to say a job.
Not that kind, not wet work.
A job.
No, I don't know what he did. He got some bottles, I think, that they were going to use for bootlegging or something like that.
Capone had a getaway or a hideout in northern Wisconsin, I believe.
Yeah,
I believe it was. I was watching. What's the show that Josh Gates does?
Oh, the Expedition? Something?
Expedition Unknown. But and I don't know if it was that one or if he had a secondary, but they went up to the restaurant or the resort that Capone had been in, and they had been followed up there. And so like they have a trunk that was supposedly left by the men who took off because they were being chased. And so like they have the clothing of the people and someone kept it. I don't know if they have like the ability to say, yes, 100% this is, but nonetheless, the stories that are there for something like that. And
that's crazy.
It's to me, it being flyover state like we all are, we're just not, it's weird to have that so much connection during the bootlegger time, during the Great Depression, during Prohibition that is connected to Minnesota and Wisconsin, even
Right.
Iowa, because we weren't that far from Chicago. We were, enough of a drive away from Chicago that it's like, they're not going to chase us this way.
Right. Plus, I mean, it's not a drive like we would do now, going 70, 80 miles an hour on the freeway.
Right.
Right. Take them an hour to get from here to St. Paul.
Right. It's like a multi-day drive from Chicago to Minneapolis.
Yeah. Well, and the prohibition is the Volstead Act made by Andrew Volstead. And Andrew Volstead was from Minnesota. And so so in the newspapers, Minnesota was called Volstead Land.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
why we called the podcast that.
Yeah.
I think I did know that in the recesses of my brain.
It all comes around. Yeah.
Yep.
So, Melissa, do you have another story?
Sure.
Hey.
This one's relevant to my trip I just took. I was in Canada for 10
Oh my
days. Well, it didn't
God.
happen there, but excuse me. Well, I love cemeteries, and so I dragged my son to like 5 or 6 cemeteries.
Melissa, let's go to cemetery sometime.
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. But anyway, while one of the cemeteries was near my great aunt Marcel's house. She's my dad's aunt, my grandma's sister. And that house had actually belonged to their father before them. So it had been in the family for quite some time. And so we drove by this house and I took a picture during our trip. So I'll post it on my Instagram. It's not a creepy house whatsoever. So when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, it was Christmas time. And my father and stepmom and I had driven up to Quebec City. We lived about 4.5 hours away. And because all the family, the grandma and my dad's brothers and sisters, everybody would get together in Quebec City for Christmas. And my great aunt Marcel was out of town. And so she said we could stay at her house. So we get there and it's dark out because it's winter. So I don't know what time it was. It was late in my mind, but it was nighttime outside.
It was probably like 5:30.
Probably. Exactly. And we got there and of course the house is dark and we're fumbling for the lights. And all of a sudden I see this white thing race out of the room and I scream and it was my aunt's cat. And aptly, the cat's name was Fanfan, which was short for fantôme, which is the French word for ghost. That's not the story. But that happened. So anyway, we get settled in. And that house was the house where the family would gather for Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter. But we'd always gather on the main floor. And so I'd never been upstairs. And so my parents, we went upstairs. It was bedtime and they took the primary bedroom with the larger bed. And they put me in a small room at the end of the hall. And I guess a little bit of backstory. I wasn't the type of kid to make a fuss about things. I was a little scared, I guess, to speak up and express that. And so I just remember a couple of things. I remember being really uncomfortable in that room. And also, I can't remember if there were lots of plants with like trailing plants that were hanging or if there were like vines on the wallpaper, but I do remember like vines of some kind. And I remember thinking, oh, the vines are going to wrap around me and I'm going to be trapped. Like it was just this weird, there was just something in there that I just didn't want to stay. And I went to my parents' room a couple times and, you guys, I'm scared. And I don't remember everything that went on, but at some point my stepmom actually said, fine, you sleep in here and I'll go in there.
Yeah.
And that's just unheard of. So whatever I told them, whatever was happening was bad enough that they did that.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's all very vague. I just remember, what I just told you. So nothing specific. And maybe 10 years later, we're driving back to Quebec City, and it's just my dad and I in the car. We're going to visit the great aunt who has since sold the house and moved into an apartment. We're driving and I just mentioned in passing, hey, Dad, do you remember that Christmas forever ago when I was in that little room at the end of the hall? And he goes, oh, Jack's room.
Who's
and
Jack?
Go, who's Jack? This is the family. Oh, who's Jack? So Jack was my grandma's dad had owned the home. Her mother had died young. His wife had died young, and he had remarried to a woman from Montreal. And they lived in this house together. And she had a brother who also lived in Montreal. And so the story goes that he either had a severe depression or had some kind of issue where he came to live with them in that house.
What's
And that was
name,
his
Jack?
room. And his name was Jack. And that was his room.
Okay.
And so my dad kind of goes, well, and that's all I know. I'm going, well, it's not enough.
Yeah.
No, not at all. That will not do.
I'm like, drive
gonna
faster,
need
Dad.
more.
Yeah. So we get to my great aunt Marcel's, and I'm just itching to ask her, but of course she's, oh, sit down. Let me get you some cookies. And she's not walking so fast. And it's those Danish cookies in the tin that people only have sewing supplies in, but she
I
actually
was just gonna say that
Those were always the
fly
fancy
cookies.
cookies.
Yes.
Those
Yes.
were,
so good.
if somebody had those, it was like, those are fancy
And they had
cookies.
the huge granules of sugar on.
Yes.
Oh God, they're so good.
And if they're served to you by a little old lady with a bun in her hair and pearls around her neck, they taste
just
better.
taste
I can
better.
picture her exactly.
It's
Yes,
science. It's science. I'm not making it up. I don't make
Those are the rules.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but
So finally she gets her cookies and whatever, all the other stuff. And we sit down and we're like, okay, so hey, Aunt Marcel, can you tell, what about Jack? So apparently he didn't much like children. And he would sit on the front steps and throw rocks if they, came too close. I mean, not if they were
right,
behaving, but
right.
so so there was that. And of course I was a child. And then came the big part of the story is that one day she was downstairs and she heard a thud. And she ran up, and Jack had been sitting on his bed and bent down to tie his shoe and dropped dead on the floor in that room. Yeah.
So for sure you were going to say something about, suicide with the way you felt about the vines.
Yeah. I don't know what the correlation was with those other
Trapped.
than I felt trapped.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I
maybe
felt
that
trapped.
has to deal with his depression and
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Just a really
goodness.
strange story. And so they
Yeah.
sent her to get the priest because back then you got the priest before you
Right.
got a doctor. And and strange. So he had a heart attack, presumably.
Mhm.
How old was he at that time?
That's a good question. And I did see his grave while I was there, and I should look at the dates. I'll look them up. I don't think he was all that old.
Okay.
Would have been a
But,
widowmaker most likely. So aorta a rupture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the strange thing is that my great aunt Marcel and her husband, who had lived in that house, maybe a couple of years before we stayed there, he had died of a heart attack inside the house also.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and it was winter and she saw he wasn't doing well and she went out to shovel to try to be able to drive
Keep
him.
him. Yep.
Yeah.
And when she came back in, I think he was gone. So
Oh.
that's how I remember.
God.
So two men in our family.
Was there any other feelings or anything that's coming through? Because it almost makes you wonder, did Jack change when he came into that house a little bit due to potentially something else influencing him? I totally understand the children can be annoying as
Yeah.
the aspect of things. I mean, they're great,
Yeah.
but I'm glad to give them back to their parents.
Exactly. I think he had issues beforehand.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
But potentially also if he was on a spectrum of any sort of thing, would he have been more open?
Or susceptible. Yeah, it's hard to know. And the house is lovely. I'll put the picture up and I'll tag the activity continues so you can
Yeah.
But it's a lovely house. It's really, and the inside was absolutely beautiful. I'm sorry, there's people daring to walk on the sidewalk.
How
dare
dare
they?
Selfish
they?
is what I'm going to call it.
my neighbor thinks she can come and go as she pleases without checking with Vivian first. And we're not having it over here.
Oh,
How
pickles.
dare she? But you'll see when you see the photo, there's just something about the house. You'll see. But you tell me if you see it. But there's just something about it.
Mhm.
I
Cool.
know. Yeah, there's a feeling. So I'll be excited to see if you feel it too.
Yeah. And Melissa, didn't you do an episode in your podcast about Jack's Room? I seem to remember there
did.
being an episode called Jack's Room.
Yep, it
Yeah.
was the very first Phantom Friday back in
Oh.
season 1. It was the very first true ghost story that I told on the podcast.
Nice.
So,
Yeah. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes too.
Yeah. And the one about the bootleggers and your house is on there too.
Oh, right,
somewhere.
right.
I don't remember what number it is, but it's in there.
That's
There's
cool.
maybe 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, those are fun.
Mhm.
Those are
Yeah.
fun. Part of her Skylark Bell podcast,
Yes.
for those of you listening.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Do you have time for another one, or do you? It's up to you.
Sure. I could tell you. Do you want to hear about the convent?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Convents are fun, right?
Okay,
Convents
why
are
would
fun.
you even need to ask your question? I'm going to tell you.
Nuns, overnight
the
shifts?
Oh
What's
my
not to
God.
love?
Yeah.
So yeah, I lived with my dad and stepmom in Ontario for many years, and when I graduated high school, I moved back to Quebec City, where most of my family is. And my aunt, she's my now we're flipping to my mom's side. That was my dad's side of the family, all the other stuff. So on my mom's side of the family, my grandmother's sister worked at a convent during the day. And they were looking for somebody to do some overnight shifts from midnight to 8 a.m. And I'm not sure I was even 18. I might have been 17 when I started. But I took that on because I needed a job. And, so I would work midnight to 8. And how the convent was set up is that it was kind of a U shape. And on the 3rd floor of one wing is where all the kind of geriatric, I suppose, or, nuns that had needs, older nuns.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, I think, either 7 or 8 of them in my care. And they had varying degrees of either physical or cognitive disabilities. One had Alzheimer's, but she was able to walk around. Others were clear-minded, but were in wheelchairs. So, it was kind of that juggling all that. And I never had issues in the beginning. Everything was fine. And the funny thing is, the city bus that I took would drop me off a little bit far away. I had to walk across this vacant lot, and it's midnight and I'm a teenager and, walk across a vacant lot and then go across their parking lot and then wait at the big door, ring a bell and wait for the walk-on to come let me in. And I was always afraid that some guy would jump out and run away with me.
Right.
But that never happened. The scary things happened inside. The people who walked by earlier are now going back the other direction. So anyway,
Rude.
Is that right? Several things happened, and I don't remember the order that I told this in my podcast episode, but one of the nuns, actually one thing that I noticed, a trend that I noticed over time, I was there for 2 years doing this.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I had a nervous breakdown. But
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, that schedule is grueling.
Yeah.
One of the nuns, her bedroom was at the far end of the hall, and how it worked is they had call buttons like in hospitals, touched their beds, and so they would push it, and it would ring a little alarm in their room, and you had to switch. There was a switch up on the wall above the head of their beds that you would switch off, but it would also then light up with their room number in the office where I was. And many of these nuns had to be sort of restrained or in their beds somehow because they would either run away or fall off, depending. So, it wasn't
right.
It wasn't
straight
inhumane.
It was for safety.
It was for safety.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just for people who haven't worked in that field, this is a thing.
Yeah.
So, her call button went off and I walk into her room. And this nun had particularly large eyes, a very, very petite face. So her eyes looked very large. And this is relevant. So I walk into her room and her curtains are open. And it was a full moon. Oh, and the thing I was saying before the dog barked again is that the trend I noticed is when there would be a full moon, the nuns would start hallucinating more. Or whether they were hallucinating or actually seeing things, I never figured out. But they would see stuff more. I am so sorry about this dog.
I can't hear
We
it.
can't hear him.
You're not? Oh, good. Okay. Okay, good. So this nun's call button goes off. I walk in, her curtains are open, and there's this moonlight shining onto her big eyes. So already it was a little scary.
Yeah.
And what was strange is we always had the curtains shut. Always, always, always at nighttime. It was what, you put the person to bed, shut the curtains. So it was weird that her curtains were open. And I said, what's going on? And of course, this is all happening in French, but I'll just tell it to you in English. I said, what's going on? And she said to me in French, she goes, the Holy Father is dead. She kind of whispered it like that. And I'm going, what do you do? And I go, okay. And in my head, I'm like, de-dramatize, like, you know?
Yeah.
And I go, okay, who told you that? And she goes, the 2 nuns in the corner of the room.
Nope.
Yeah, nope. And then
goodbye.
I'm just like, oh man. And
Sorry, you're on your own. I'm gonna leave. Sorry.
And like I wanted to so badly.
Right.
But there's 8 or 9 of these nuns. Like, what are you gonna do? And so I just said, okay, well, try to go back to sleep. What are you gonna do? Try to go back to sleep and shut the curtain and let it go.
Here, I'll play some Bram's lullaby and just go back to sleep.
Yeah,
I'll be fine.
Exactly. So it was just that, there were a series of strange things like that. Another time, a different nun, this one suffered from Alzheimer's. And this story was quite strange. So 2 different things happened with her. So the first one, her call button goes off and I go to her room. And I get to her room and the switch has been switched off already. The switch that's up on the wall above her head. And she's also restrained in her bed.
I don't like it.
And I'm going, how did that get turned off? Like, there's no way.
Right.
The 90s, like, there was no kind of electronic whatever. It was, you had to manually flip a metal switch. And the switch was off. And I thought that was very strange. And I look at her, and before I can even say a word, she looks at me and says to me, I'm scared.
Oh my God.
I'm scared too.
I'm with you, sister.
Literally.
Yep. Oh,
yep. Yep. I love it. So, I also didn't know what to do with that. And I told her to sleep. And a few nights later, I'm in the office and all of a sudden, same nun, I hear her singing loudly. And
Megan.
the thing with this is, the thing with this is it's almost like when you have a daycare and it's nap time and one of the kids starts being goofy and you're like, oh no, they're going to wake all the other kids up. Same thing. It's the same thing. And I'm going, oh my God, if she's singing, now the other one down the hall that always wants another blanket and
Yeah.
I'm going, no.
Was it her actually singing?
Well, it was.
Okay, thank God.
I walk in and I'm like, hey, sister. We'll leave her name out, even though she's probably departed by now. Hey, sister, what's going on? It's like 3 a.m. and why are you singing? And she said that the Virgin Mary was at the foot of her bed and wouldn't stop singing. And so she was singing along.
Okay.
And she's looking at the thing that's so creepy to me. And I never saw anything in that convent. But the thing that's creepy to me is that the way they would look at these spaces, she would look at the foot of the, like she saw somebody there.
There was
and she could have been hallucinating. I'm not saying necessarily it was paranormal, but either way, it's very disconcerting.
Creepy.
Especially alone at night in this 100-year-old building, So I told her to tell the Virgin Mary that it was 3 a.m. and that they could start singing.
But it was, so 3 a.m.
Yeah, that's the hour.
Is that the hour?
Yep, that would be the witching hour that we are all well attuned to.
A lot of things happened in that 2 to 3, 3:30, 2 to 4 window, and especially on the full moons. So she said out loud, hey, it's time to sleep and we're going to stop singing. And she rolled over and went to sleep. That was so strange.
Wow.
That's unnerving for sure. Yeah.
Very much so. So then the last part is to me the most unnerving. It was a beautiful building, with wood trim and granite steps that would go down to the basement. But I'm putting quotes around basement because it was kind of, there were still rather large windows. It wasn't all the way underground. And it was very spacious.
First floor basement almost.
Kind of. Yeah. And it was the cafeteria. It wasn't creepy. It was finished. It was beautiful flooring and wood trim. It was very nice. There was nothing creepy about the basement or the lower level. But every day around 4 a.m. before any of them woke up, I would go downstairs and get, bread, yogurt, bananas, things for their breakfasts. And that's also where the kitchens were. And then I would bring it back upstairs and prepare some food for them in the morning. And I always hated that part. I always hated going downstairs. I don't know why. Again, there was nothing creepy down there. but I always felt really uncomfortable, not in the stairway or anything like that, just when I got down to near the kitchen. So one day I was replacing somebody for a daytime shift on the weekend. And it was a beautiful day, sunny, and the nuns, we actually had them outside on the porch, the back porch. And I was taking that first nun, the one with the big eyes, I was taking her for a walk. I had to hold her because she had mobility issues. So they had this massive, beautiful garden behind the convent. So we're walking the path along the garden, and there's a pretty little shrine with some prayers and the Virgin Mary and stuff. And a little further down the path next to that, there were 2 flat graves on the ground. And we stopped there, and I'm thinking, oh, she wants to say a little prayer or something for her sisters. And she then proceeds to tell me that those nuns were working in the kitchen one night, and an intruder got in and attacked them, and they didn't survive. And they were buried in this garden. Yeah, I know. Totally not what I was expecting on a sunny Saturday morning. So, so that made me even more not want to go down and get their bread and bananas and go there.
Was that true? Like a true story?
It really was. It actually was. I checked with my aunt later on. Yep. And that actually did happen, unfortunately. So very scary.
Yeah, for sure.
So I worked there for 2 years, and nobody died in my 2 years. Normally they would lose, just because they were older.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Lose a nun per year on average, and nobody died my whole time there. So
that's good.
I'm proud of that. I know. Yeah. But I guess it was maybe, 7 or 8 years later, the convent was sold, and most of it was torn down. The chapel still stands, and the bodies of the nuns were relocated, the ones that had deceased. And but that little shrine is still there, and parts of the garden are still there. They've made a little park, and there's condos now. And where the chapel was is now the gym that goes with the condos.
I am so curious about the residents of that place, and if they are experience any of the same feelings that you had, or seeing people, seeing things, claiming to be the Virgin Mary.
Yeah, that makes me wonder, was it actually, or was it something claiming to be
that's where
or that first nun who said, the Holy Father is dead, meaning the Pope, for those who
I didn't
she
know
said
that,
the 2 nuns in the corner of the room are the ones who told her. And later on, she told me about these 2 nuns who had been murdered.
They were the ones that were murdered.
I wonder if it's the same, if she's seeing those same 2 nuns.
So was the Pope dead?
No.
So they were wrong.
He didn't die for several years. Yeah, it was just the strangest.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre, the whole thing. But I often wonder too, and the sounds that echo in my mind are the call buttons. And they all wore these block heels, and the sound of those block heels in those hallways has really stuck with me. And I wonder if the people in those condos hear
and the habits
I bet.
Yeah. But it was an interesting experience on so many levels. There are a lot of funny stories I could tell too. But it was a very, very cool experience. I wouldn't do it again. But it was really interesting, and especially I don't have a religious perspective, so being there without that and seeing just the way of life and how they approached death and all those things, it was really fascinating.
I bet. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you.
You bet.
Yes, great stories.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Check out her podcast.
Yes, check out Skylark Bell. And
award-winning.
20 other podcasts too.
Yeah, I don't really update the other ones. I pretty much just have focused on this one now.
And we have to do our time travel Cozy Land.
Yes. Cozy Land is the exception because that's fun, and the time travel one is going to be a lot. And Christmas is now coming, so we'll be doing those too.
We can do Hallmark. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yes, that will be fun.
That reminds me, I saw another time travel movie that I've been meaning to tell you. I think it's called Fast Forward. It's about a young girl whose boyfriend dies, and she listens to a mixtape on a cassette, and she can fast forward and rewind it.
I've seen that.
You have?
Yes, I don't remember all of it now, but I've seen it. I
was
remember
really
that.
cute.
It was really good.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
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 So we can talk about that one too. But anyway,
Yes.
we'll let you go. But thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
Giving us your
Yeah.
fabulous story.
I know.
Oh, yes. Thank
Can't
you
wait
so
for the
much.
next time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had recent things too, but I'm not going to tell you just yet because I need to save them for the podcast, but it involves a cemetery and it's very, very bizarre.
Nice.
All right. So when are we doing the Anoka County tour? I think they have a cemetery tour at some point, ladies.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. We should do
That'd
that
be
for
fun.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a really cool old-timey cemetery in Excelsior
Ooh.
that is like really cool, like really creepy. I think it's still there. I hope it is.
I'm in.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Pretty sure when we were in Bayfields that where we were coming from the VRBO into town, the cemetery's on two sides of the road. So you know that they split the cemetery at some point, and you're kind of like, did they move everybody?
Probably
Yeah,
not.
Probably
Where
not.
are we driving over?
Yeah. Like you get the feeling of that, and you can see like just at various levels of different things. But there was a full crucifixion cross and everything as the headstone of I mean, it was like 10 foot tall.
That's big.
Whoa.
That's
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
we can do
then.
that for sure. Spooky season's coming.
Favorite time.
Best.
Yep.
Best
the
time of
best.
the year.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks,
All right.
Melissa.
Thank
We
you,
will see you
guys.
soon.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Talk
Bye.
soon, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, I guess that's all we got. And it's
Yeah.
getting late.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm trying to get my dad to write me down a couple of stories that would go along a little bit with what Melissa was talking about with a nun in a convent,
Ooh.
a sister. He doesn't want me to use her real name or
That's
the
fine.
order that she
that's fine.
was a part of,
Yeah, that's
but
We can just make
She-
one up. We can just call her Sister Whoopi or something.
I'm already calling her Sister Ann.
Okay.
Okay. Next time I'll have to tell you about my mom's UFO experience because
Ooh.
I had totally I was telling her about it and she was like, "Well, I told you that your father and I saw a UFO." And I was like,
That's right.
no, you didn't. No, you didn't, Lori. She just like casually dropped it in like, "Oh, I went to the store, I got some bread, and we saw a
I
UFO.
saw a UFO.
And did you want half and half or creamer?" Like,
I also will have to say I have a few stories that are from when the pheasant hunting lodge that we stayed at in South Dakota with my friend's dad's place that they own. And there's just some middle of nowhere. There's a really cool story about a woman who helped the natives when nobody else would, when cholera was going through.
nice.
And she didn't make it. And yeah.
Shit.
And then there's definitely some experiences that
Yeah.
several of us have had in that area.
And yeah, we'll have to do
Yeah.
but that's for next time, folks.
Yeah. I've got some stories too from the house that Melissa was talking about.
You do.
Do we have you yet? Have we hooked you in yet
Will you
for
be
our next
listening?
episode?
Yeah.
Talk about a cliffhanger.
Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time. Not
If
sure
you're
what we're
still
doing,
here.
but we'll do it.
Bye.
Bye, ladies. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a suggestion for which episode of the Dead Files we should cover next, or if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media and is part of the independent Collected Sounds Podcast Network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.
Oh, hi there. This is Kate. And I'm Dominic, and we are your hosts of Shitting Bricks, the podcast.
Every week we'll bring you an episode of what makes people shit bricks. Is it a fear of death? Deep water? Running out of wine? Cannibalism? We take a warped look at these topics using examples from history that are the epitome of some scary shit.
You can find us on all the regular podcast streaming services like Apple, Spotify, and Google. For exclusive content including behind-the-scenes nuggets, links to weekly topics, and maybe even merch in the future, head to Shitting Bricks Podcast on Instagram and YouTube. But for now, drop your dacks, pop a squat, and let's get into it.